Jai Jagannath, Jai Radhe. We are recording, we are meeting today regarding if you are okay with it, we can talk again about how to address the problem of the caste system in India and elsewhere. Last time we had a discussion on this subject, but I didn't publish it because it was a little bit, what to say, heavy in criticism. But I don't want to do politics. I'm not interested in politics. So, of course, the caste issue is a political issue today. It has nothing to do with the religion. And we see that especially in the United States in these days, there is a big fight going on because the state of Washington, in Seattle, a law has been passed that includes caste as a category to be addressed in the matter of discrimination, social discrimination. Couple of years ago, the Hindu ethnic Indian community of the United States had a victory in the Cisco case, because in the end the court dismissed the accusations against Cisco and against some workers in Cisco that had been sued for caste discrimination on the workplace. But luckily, I was also involved in the process of elaborating a defense approach for the legal aspects of the trial, the court case. And luckily, the Hindu community won, so the case was dismissed. But now in Seattle, looks like it did not. It's not a case, but it's a law that has been passed. Not unanimously, but it has been passed. Now, from the political point of view, we know that in adding the caste as a discriminating factor in the society in the United States is stupid. Because there is no caste discrimination legally. Adding the idea that it is discriminated will only reinforce the caste discrimination. It's like we say, if we really want to eliminate racism, we have to stop talking about race. It's not that if we make people more aware of a discrimination, we are eliminating the discrimination. It's not happening like that. We just have to, train people, educate people in considering the actual personal value and behaviors of the various individuals, because otherwise one day we can legalize, we should legalize the discrimination against people who went to jail, or against people who didn't finish college, or against people who, I don't know, whatever. We should, we should eliminate all these discriminations, but that doesn't mean that we should be, forced by law to see all people exactly as the same, because that's not real. But these are political considerations, in the United States. Political considerations in India is that the government is keeping the caste system going very strong through the reservation bills and all this so-called positive discrimination, which is still discrimination, while actually reservation and special facilities should be given to people based on merit, individual merit and need, not based on birth. And of course, in the cities, the caste of people is practically unknown, because, when you get on a bus or you get on a train, nobody's asking anyone what is their caste. People sit on the bus, they can sit side to side with, very different castes, but, nobody cares. And the same way in a apartment block, in a apartment building, who's going to ask other people what is their caste? Only problem is that the government continues to ask the caste certificate and, for everything, from enrolling in public school, voting and getting jobs, getting everything, which is wrong. But the point that I was discussing the other time, I want to discuss more, philosophically this time, is that the problem of the caste system in India can be solved only by actually applying the original and genuine Vedic system that is called Varna Ashrama Dharma. Now, we can elaborate on how the caste system was not originally in Hinduism. It was imposed first by the Arab invaders, who also have caste. They have two castes. They have high caste and low caste. The high caste are the Arabs because of their racial characteristics, and the low caste are all the converted peoples, the slaves, blacks, and whatever. And again, the caste system, the British colonial Raj built on this Islamic Arab idea and made the census based on caste according to race. With the idea of the infamous Aryan invasion theory. So in the same mentality that the Arabs have brought into India, the British surmised that the high castes were whiter in color, they were fair, and because they were the purest race descendant from the Aryans, the Indo-European Aryans, so they were a purer race, the white people. And so the white people in India, in the Indian society, were Brahmins. The Brahmins were white, while the other ones were black. And unfortunately, we still see that, in the general mentality in India. We can see, for example, in the films, in the TV advertisement, all the good characters are white, Indian white, not Western white, because the Westerners are all very bad. But Indian white are the good people, and the Indian black are bad people. They're stupid, they're wicked, they're lazy, ignorant, lusty, whatever bad things you'll find in black characterization. And this is also why in India we have the famous Fair and Lovely and Fair and Handsome selling a lot of bleach for people to, look white. Same thing we look in the marriage websites, the matrimonial advertisements. Who wants a black bride or a black groom? Nobody wants that. So, but we know that the original Vedic system was definitely not based on the color of the skin, because we see so many examples. We see Krishna is black and Balaram is white. They're brothers. We see Arjuna is white and Draupadi is black. We see Yashoda is also described, the complexion of Yashoda is described as a blue lotus. So, the fact that Krishna was treated like the son of Yashoda seemed completely natural, but it was also completely natural that Balaram was his brother, because there was absolutely no fixation on DNA. The DNA reason that many caste people bring is typically Abrahamic, and it's the same like the pedigree of the dogs. So it's not really very complimentary. The Vedic system, based on Varnas and Ashrams, is actually perfect. As we were saying the other day, it's perfect in the sense that it covers all the aspects and is based on guna and karma. Like Krishna says very clearly in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarnyam maya shristam guna karma vibhagasa. The system of the Varnas is created directly by the Brahman, the Param Brahman, by Krishna, by Vishnu, whatever you want to call it. And it is based on the qualities, the gunas, the qualities, the tendencies, the mentality, the likes and dislikes, the potential manifested and everything, and on karma, which is the activities that someone is actually performing, the duties, the prescribed karma, that is performed according to a very specific training. So, it's so simple that if we really had qualified brahmanas, a qualified dharma sabha, instead of the pathetic nonsense that is going on in that name, or even just a qualified king, because the king could do that in the Vedic system. The king had the power of declaring someone as belonging to one varna instead of another. So we have the guru, the brahmanas, and the king could do that. Okay, so today we don't have any of them who can do that. But it should be. If we want to build a Hindu Rashtra, we need to know what Hindu means. And Hindu basically means Vedic, Varna, Ashrama, Dharma. So, either the guru or the brahmanas, the Brahma Sabha, any brahmana, or the king should give a religious certificate, not a professional certificate or a political certificate, but okay, in Diksha, with initiation, or anyway, even the king can give a certificate, why not? But the belonging to the Varna should be done according to the guna and karma. So giving a certificate of high caste to someone who doesn't have the qualifications, doesn't have the gunas, and doesn't perform a Brahmana activity properly and has no training in Brahmana is actually a major crime, because it's not the proper system, and it's like the Bhagavata Purana says in Kali Yuga, there will be Shudras, pretending to be kings, to be government leaders, government people, who actually act as Shudras. They have a job, they are, dealing with material power, with politics. Like we see Maharaj Parikshit in the beginning of the Bhagavata Purana, he meets the age of Kali, who is a Shudra, less than a Shudra, dressed as a king, that is demolishing the four pillars of Dharma, the four legs of Dharma. So, we start with the Satyam, truthfulness. If people don't like the truth, sorry. But truthfulness is the basic of Dharma. So without Satyam, there is no Dharma. We can try to put so much sugar on the Satyam, on the pill, but still. So whoever gives certificates, whoever gives official assignments to a Varna, not to a caste. A caste doesn't mean anything. We are talking about Varnas. People confuse caste with Varna. It's not a good idea. We should talk about Varna. So, the Guru, Brahmana, the Brahma Sabha, or the king can and should give certificates to individuals as in relationship to their position in the Varna system according to Guna and Karma. This means that the person who gives a certificate has properly examined the candidate and trained the candidate, because what karma people can do, what good karma they can do by engaging in performing their specific duties, svakarma, swadharma, if they've not been trained. They're just going to, more or less, by their fantasy, their opinion, but that doesn't mean being trained. So, until now, any question, any objection, any elaboration, anything to say?
Nothing as such specific, but we know that this was not Indian, but how it got introduced. That
Okay. Close the mic. How it got introduced. First of all, if you go and see my book, Gods or Aliens, and also my book about why I became a Hindu, there is a whole chapter, especially why I became a Hindu, there is a whole chapter on this argument, this point. And in the meantime, I've also, after publishing that book, I also found some more information that I may add in subsequent publications if I can. But, for example, we have page 31, the problem of the caste system. Now, I read. The legal and official definition of Hinduism are generally accepted and quoted by various Hindu teachers and activists. However, by reading the history of Hindu resurgent movement and the various elaborations of its representatives, and comparing them with the general public opinion and academic versions, we inevitably stumble upon a number of blind spots that are still creating a good deal of confusion, not only in regard to the Hindu converts of foreign origin, but also in regard to those Indians of lower castes and tribes that actually qualify as Hindus as per the legal definitions as well as per the scriptural definitions, but they're not considered Hindus proper. Like Mayavati often says, Dalits are not Hindus. Okay. So, various subtents, we have, general Arya society. In some areas, the system became corrupted, especially because of the clan mentality introduced by immigrating groups from Western regions, such as the Huns, Sakas, etc., who converted to Hinduism and took power in the subcontinent from the 9th century CE onwards. We can also go one step back to the Gupta period, that is a few centuries earlier, where the actual caste system started to form with the creation of the category of kayastas, which kayasta is not a varna. Kayasta is a clever invention by some politician, who wanted to keep the degraded people happy, because already the Gupta period, we are well into the Kali Yuga. And we know that the Kali Yuga starts, as per description of the Bhagavata Purana, when the unqualified young son of the Brahmana, Shringi, curses Maharaj Parikshit because he thinks he is a Brahmana but is not qualified, he doesn't understand what he's doing, and his father is not happy either. So, already Kali Yuga had started creating problems based on bodily identification and birth prejudice. Shringi believed himself to be a Brahmana because he was the son of a Brahmana, which is not a very good idea, because, for example, Atri Rishi is famous for having said, Janmana Jayate Shudra. By birth, one can only be a Shudra. So, let's go on. Then we have the Gupta period. The Kayasta class was created to accommodate the non-qualified descendants, children of Brahmana and Kshatriya families. So if someone born in a family of Brahmanas and Kshatriyas was not found to be qualified, at that time they were still, intelligent enough to say, no, well, it's not really a Brahmana, it's not really a Kshatriya. In the Vedic period, these people were called Brahmavandhus or Kshatravandhus, which means relative of a Brahmana and relative of a Kshatriya. But in the Gupta period, the situation had already become so degraded that the number of these people, these Brahmavandhus and Kshatravandhus, had grown to a real big category of people, and they didn't know what to do with them. So the kings, created this category of kayastas, which is actually a Shudra category. It's in the Varna of Shudras. And a kayasta is a bureaucrat, a government servant, an accountant, basically. Someone who keeps the books. And keeping the books, but just recording the facts and the things and the numbers and the taxes and everything is not a Brahmana work. It's a Shudra work. But because they were, sons of these big families and they wanted to have some prestige and recognition and power and everything, the category of bureaucrats was created. And we have to thank the Guptas for the bureaucratic system that is eating up the entire planet. Bureaucracy means corruption. Because it's about giving power, too much power, to people who are not qualified, who are not responsible. they're just scribes. They're just writing down stuff that other people tell them. But they don't have any qualification. So this was already a bad day when the kayastas were created as a caste. Then, in the 9th century, starting from, even before that, the Sakas started to come before that, and even the Huns also started to come before that, so much that when the Huns converted to Hinduism, I have to correct this one. Okay. When the Huns came to India, what then Muller and Macaulay called the Aryans were not actually Aryans. They were Huns. They were Caucasian nomads that were definitely not Vedic. They came to India with their mentality, their clan and their whole stuff. They liked India and they converted to Hinduism. It's not that they brought Hinduism to India, they actually came to India and became Hindus. Unfortunately, at that time, I believe it was 2nd century before this era, it started. At that time, already, there were not so many very good brahmanas, so these newcomers were trained, in an imperfect manner. Some were very sincere and some were not. In fact, many of these Huns, immigrants, became bandits, highway robbers. They were called the Gurjars. So let me find exactly, the Saka period. And this is the origin of the Rajput. The Rajasthan and Gujarat. So let me see where it is. But the idea is that when these Huns, Sakas or whatever, Gurjar, came to India, they had a society that was very similar to the so-called Indo-European peoples that we find then in Europe. Like, for example, the Norsemen, Normans, Vikings, whatever you want to call them. They also had a society that was apparently divided in Varnas, but it was not the same like the Varna system, because in the Vedic Varna system, the top position is the Brahmana. The Brahmana is totally independent and gives proper teachings to the Kshatriyas. In the so-called Indo-European system, non-Vedic system, the top position in society is the king. And the Brahmana, so-called Brahmana, is actually a bard, is a court poet. It's not an advisor or a teacher, definitely not a teacher. The job of the court poet or court panegyrist is that to glorify the king, because the king is always right. The king tells the bard what to tell the people. So this is exactly the opposite of what the Brahmana is supposed to do. The Brahmana is supposed to tell the king what to do. In the Indo-European Viking system, it is the king that tells the bard what to do. Which already we see how the situation goes. Then in the Indo-European system, so-called, the king is only by succession, not by guna and karma. It's a matter of family. It's a matter of clan. So even if someone, a descendant, is absolutely not qualified to become the king, he becomes a king anyway because that's a clan. And people have to pledge allegiance to the king or the earl, the jarl or whatever, the chief of the tribe. Another big difference is that in the Vedic system we have the Vaishyas and the Shudras. In the Viking, let's call it Viking because people have heard about Vikings a lot since the TV series came out. In the Viking system we have the king and the king family, the aristocracy. Then we have the bard, which is usually one or two, not a category. It's one or two people, not a particular social class. And then we have the free men. The free men are in between the aristocracy and the peasantry. So they don't have particular power, but they don't have particular duties either. They can choose a clan, they can swear allegiance to a clan chief, a king, or whatever, but they're free. If they want, they can go. They can change. And these are the free men. The fourth class in the Viking social system is the thralls. Thrall, from which the English word enthralled, means bonded. They're kind of bonded labor. The thralls are like, bonded labor or people who get peasants, farmers that get some land from either the free men or the aristocracy, but they are tied to that land. It's not their land. So they're just peasants, they're commoners. Which is not the Vaishya. Doesn't have anything to do with the Vaishya, it's more similar to the Shudra. And then we have the slaves, which are not Shudras. They're actually on the same level of animals. They can be sold, while in the Vedic system, the Shudras can never be sold. There is no slavery. Sometimes we see that someone is giving their son to someone else as if it was in slavery, but it's not actual slavery. There is not a market of slaves. In the Vedic system, we don't have, people, the people going around kidnapping, women, children, and other, non-combatants and making them slaves to sell them on the market. That's nothing like that. The Shudra, in the Vedic system, the Shudra can, pick up and go. Well, if he's not happy with the employer, he can just go away. In fact, that is why the Manusagita, the Manava Dharma Shastra, feels required to say that a Shudra should not abandon his employer, even if he's sick or in poverty stricken or having problems, because if he could not abandon the employer, there was no need to say that he should not. So then we have this situation started with the Huns becoming somehow converted to Hinduism. Some of these became actually very good people, like, for example, Chhatrapati Shivaji, and other Marathas, who actually, the Marathas and Rajput are actually descendants from these converted Huns, who were, very tough and very, eager also to defend Hinduism. Basically, most of them became devotees of Durga. They were very warrior-like, because that's what the Europeans were doing. They were warriors. But some did not stick to the system. And still today, if we go and see, especially in the Rajput, lots of them have, along the centuries, they've fallen back into the bad habits, like, getting drunk and eating meat without any restriction, which is not considered, acceptable for Kshatriyas, not exactly dharmic. So then what happened? The first, I'm reading from page 32. The first definition of the concept of caste was given by Aurangzeb, 1618 to 1707, in his Fatwa-i-Alamgiri, according to the Islamic Hanafi law system that became the basis for the legal system in India, and was again presented by Muslim League leader Amir Ali in 1909 for the purpose of dividing and weakening a rising Hindu cooperation front. So, as I said before, we have in the Islamic world, we have the high caste, that are the Arabs of whiter complexion, and the slaves, which are also sometimes, called blacks or Hindus. Just go and see how the Pakistani Muslims, Bangladeshi Muslims are treated in the Gulf states, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Oman, and all these places. They're not treated exactly in the same level of Muslim brotherhood. So in 1910, which is totally in British period, but just developing, a circular passed by the British government officer E.A. established that the definition of Hindu should not be based on personal religious beliefs and a direct declaration of identification by the individuals, but on whether they were considered untouchables and therefore denied entry into public temples. Furthermore, the distinction was introduced in the general census as strictly hereditary or ethnic, means racial, and fundamental for the administration system under the British regime. According to Census Commissioner H. Risley, caste is the cement that holds together the myriad units of Indian society. Historians such as Bernard Korn and Nicola Drix, Ranajit Guha, and Ram Bhagat, which is not Ram Bhagavat of the RSS, argued that the British effectively created a caste system as it exists today through their census system and legislation. So, the biggest problem now in the caste system is that, just like the Islamic and British mentality, it is not based on guna and karma, and it is not based on social occupation. It is based on low and high and low. The high people are the noble people by definition, even if they behave like pigs. And the low people are the commoners, the peasants, the low class, and whatever. Doesn't matter how good people they are. So the present caste system still in the Indian legislation system is the general category, where all the three higher varnas and maybe the fourth varna is also included. Then we have the backward caste, that is probably the Shudras, but they don't have the definition of Shudras in the backward caste. They have all sorts of other names. One can think, okay, maybe Shudra. And then we have the so-called Dalits, or scheduled caste, or outcast, or that in the Vedic system were called avarnis, because they did not belong to any varna. Lots of people, including Indian Hindus, make a confuse the Dalits with Shudras, which is definitely not fact, because the Shudras are still in the Varna system, and they don't have this stigma of untouchability, because they live in the same house with their employer, they fetch the water, they touch everything, they touch the children, they touch the people, they wash the clothes, how can they be untouchable? Now, the problem of untouchability was originally due to hygienic and purposes, because the Avarnis were not living in the same settlements of Aryan people, but they had their own settlements. And they had nothing to do with the Nagarikas, with the Varna people. Nothing to do. The Avarnis lived, on the seashore, and they were fishermen. They lived in the forest, and they were hunters. They lived in the crematoriums, and they were, dealing all the time with cleaning they were robbing the dead people, because when the family took the dead body to the crematorium, okay, the family themselves, they did all the required rituals and handling of the dead body and everything, so much that still today, when someone dies in a family, even a very high Brahmin caste, the whole family is considered untouchable for 10 days. So for 10 days, they cannot go to the temple, they cannot do anything else, they cannot go and see other people. They are considered untouchable because they are considered contaminated. Then what happens? At the end of the 10 days, they finish their mourning, and they go back to their normal duties. They clean the house, they even whitewash the walls, and they get new clay pots, and they do lots of very deep cleaning, and they shave, and they get new clothes, fresh clothes, they take a bath, they purify themselves, and then they become normal purified people, and they go back to their normal duties. And this was also until the British census, was a normal system for anyone that was considered untouchable. We have, in fact, big people like this Shuddhananda Swami of the Arya Samaj. That was, he was, let me see exactly, Lakshmanananda until recently. And in general, okay, it's not Mani Reform, Jyoti Rao, Kule, Tyachoda, Swamikal, Ayankali, Namada Shankar, Lakshman Shankar Dev, Adhav Ram, Ramakrishna Gopal, Bikander, blah blah. Shraddhananda Swami, the Shuddhi movement. There are lots of people including, normally the Brahmanas in every village, they had the duty to purify people. If any Dalit, Avarni, or whatever went to them for purification, for the Shuddhi, Prayaschita, and Diksha, the Brahmana had to do all the rituals for Shuddhi, Prayaschita, and Diksha. So the Dalit would become, a full member of the Arya society in a Varna, maybe as a Shudra, but then, he was not an untouchable anymore. So this was stopped gradually by the Islamists and definitely, finally, by the British. So this purification system practically now has become unknown. There are only a couple of ashrams who do that. The Arya Samaj is doing that, but you have to follow their own rules and everything. ISKCON is not exactly doing that, because ISKCON has very clearly stated many times that ISKCON is not a Hindu. We are not interested in Hinduism. We don't make people Hindu. We don't convert people to Hinduism. So, their initiation is not accepted by the Orthodox Hindu community. So this is how the caste system was introduced. In fact, there is a tell.
No. I just said, okay, yeah, that's a long history.
Yeah, that's a long story.
Hmm.
One of the most interesting examples, especially in the West, the definition for untouchables is paria. The pariah, has been used as a dictionary word in English and in also many other Western languages to refer to someone who is low caste or untouchable. But the funny thing is that the pariahs were a family of Brahmanas from, I think, Rajasthan or Gujarat. I don't know exactly which place. But because one of the members of this family, dynasty, whatever, had been found conspiring against the local king, he had, and all his family and dynasty were sentenced to exile by the king, and they had to go away without taking any possession, so they were actually dispossessed. And they moved to Tamil Nadu. From Gujarat to Tamil Nadu, they worked a lot. They reached Tamil Nadu, where they started to, nobody was disturbing them, so they gradually started to do whatever type of work they wanted to do. Even someone, continued to work as Brahmanas, because they were actually learned and educated. But because they didn't possess any land, when the British made the census, they were listed as dispossessed, like commoners, not even landholders. And they were forcibly occupied, to work in tanneries, because they didn't have land. They were just, around doing whatever work they could do. They were actually, forced to become workers in tanneries, which made them really untouchables, because you can smell a tannery from kilometers away. And it's probably, the dirtiest job, even dirtier than night soil removers, that toilet cleaners, And considering the toilet cleaners, the Arabs introduced the Arab toilet system, while in the ancient India, they were the actual flush toilet system by which nobody had to remove the stool, the excrements of anyone. You just did your business in the hole and flushed, like we do today. So the Arab toilet was actually just a pan where people did their business, and then the servant came and took away the pan and emptied it somewhere and washed it. So but the tannery was even worse, because you worked all the time with dead bodies of animals, these dead skins, and you had to use these disgusting chemicals to tan the leather. So that's why the pariahs came to be treated like pariahs. So okay, so this is the answer of how it was introduced. Okay, so we had some other questions. So the first one is steps needed to be taken to practically implement the Varna system in detail. As I said, the first step is that someone responsible should start training people according to the Vedic knowledge and giving Varna certificate, not caste certificate. It should be written Varna certificate, not caste certificate. The caste certificate should completely be forgotten. The government should stop asking for the caste certificate. I should not ask for the Varna certificate because that is irrelevant for the government. So this is a big step that unfortunately it's very difficult to take, because all the political parties, including the good ones, are heavily banking on the vote banks based on caste and minorities. So we have the BJP Muslim branch, like what? So we have the people who can vote, even if they don't have any actual understanding of what they're voting, should be tricked into giving their vote to us. So we want to see, okay, what is this category? The Congress Party was helping the minorities, whatever. So we also have the minorities, which is not the Vedic system. The Vedic system is a responsible system. It's based on the king, and the king is only ruling over a very small kingdom because he has to be personally, directly responsible for the well-being on each and every subject, not only the humans but the animals as well. So what I've been telling people for many years is that we need a shadow government, self-governance. It is called self-governance. It's like the self-employment. We see normally, especially in villages, that people, every village has the most important person that everybody respects. It doesn't need to be elected by some political party. It's a person that is individually and personally, directly respected and appreciated because people believe that that person is a good person, is a capable person. Let's go and ask that person. This is a natural tendency of human beings, and it usually works. Now, the problem is the system of the political parties that is called representative democracy, which is not democracy at all. It's not the government of the people, but the government of the political parties. It's not even the government of the politicians who get elected in that particular position, because even a prime minister is not free to do whatever he wants, because he's not personally responsible. He has to do what the party tells him to do. And this is the problem. The idea of a political party is totally opposed to the Vedic system. We want to implement the Vedic system, the Hindu Rashtra, the Vedic Rashtra. We have to throw the political parties out of the window. We have to throw the representative democracy out of the window. We need to install the self-governance of the communities. The various communities, they all, manage themselves, their own things, the normal things. And the Kshatriya, the king, is only responsible for the physical protection of the subjects. So the king is never going to tell the people what to do in their personal lives, or how to do their business, how to do their jobs, how to run their families. This is supposed to be the self-governance of a family or community or whatever. The king only has to be sitting there, in a particular place that we can call the assembly hall, the throne hall, or the king's hall, or the darbar, or whatever we want to call it. And anyone can approach him and ask for help, assistance, protection. And in this assembly, anyone can sit and give their opinion. But that's an opinion. That's not that they vote the resolution. They give the opinion, and the king considers, he listens to all the opinions, and some opinions are good, some opinions are lousy, okay. But the king is responsible directly, personally, for taking the decisions, and for paying the consequences of the decision. If the king fails, it's not that he goes home with his good salary, and he's an former prime minister, and now we have another prime minister. No, the king has to pay from his own pocket. And if he has not done a good job, he's kicked out, exiled, away. Don't show your face ever again. Or maybe he can kill himself. I don't know, depending on how bad, how bad he did. But this is the main obstacle. The political parties are the main obstacles to the establishing of the Varna system. We need to do a shadow government, like it always, like, for example, during the freedom fight, the independence movement, there was a shadow government of India. Bose, Jagadish Chandra Bose was the main guy of this shadow government. He was going around and dealing with Japan, or whatever he was dealing with. But that was called a shadow government. Shadow government takes the responsibility of helping the people to do what is the normal right of people to do. The shadow government is not fighting the official government. It's just getting the work done. I don't know if it's clear. Okay, looks like it's clear. So the first step to implement the actual Varna system, first of all, create a shadow government, empower people at grassroots levels to take care of their own business and choose their own leaders locally. If we still have to stick to the so-called democratic election system, we can vote independent candidates that are not connected to any political party, because this is still possible to do. Legally, politically, it's still possible. An independent candidate can run for elections without depending on any political party. Or he can be the political party. Like in Orissa, the Patnaik family is the political party. It's not that, someone else is telling the Patnaiks what to do. The Patnaiks do what the Patnaiks do. They give themselves a name of a political party, but that's irrelevant. The problem is that when the political party is not responsible, there is no one really responsible. So, Mohan Bhagavat is not responsible. Narendra Modi is not responsible. Who is responsible? It's not clear. So, independent candidate, we know that independent candidate is responsible for himself or herself, whatever. And then, locally we need to build a real Brahmana Sabha, a real Dharma Sabha locally, that puts together all the serious people, the Hindus who are actually qualified as Brahmanas in guna and karma, and who can actually sit and talk sense, not fantasizing about things they actually don't know about. They should actually stick to the Shastra and to the actual history and to Dharma and Vidya, and they should train all others as Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, or Shudras, and give the Varna certificate, as I was saying before, which has nothing to do with the caste certificate. Then, question number 2. From the tales of Mahabharata, we can see Ashwatthama and Vyasadeva were best example of Varna as per guna and karma. At the same time, Karna was always being restricted all the time from expressing his innate guna. How to understand this contradiction? Okay, now these examples are exactly what we mean by the purpose of the Leela. The Leela manifested by the avatars and their companions are like, theater performances that are supposed to convey some teachings, both as instructions that are found in the dialogues between the characters of the story, and also as practical examples showing how things should be done, and when things are done in one way rather than another, we get a result rather than another. Like Ashwatthama was treated like a son of a Brahmana, but Krishna in Bhagavata Purana clearly says, in Mahabharata as well, clearly says that he is a Brahma Bandhu. He should not be given the respect of, due to a Brahmana. He should be respected as the relative of a Brahmana, therefore should not be killed, but he cannot be allowed to keep a position of Brahmana or a position of respect in society just because he's the son of Drona. And in the same way, we have Vyasa. Vyasa is considered a great Brahmana, rishi, and everything, even if he was the illegitimate son of a fisher woman. Satyavati was called also Matsyagandha because she was the daughter of a fisherman. And here we have the entire problem. Because the problem was not Vyasa, it was his mother. And his mother's father. When Santanu wanted to marry Satyavati, Satyavati's father, he was a fisherman. He was not an Arya person. So he didn't understand what is the meaning of king. For him, being king means someone who has lots of power and lots of money. So he said, okay, you can marry my daughter, but only on the condition that only the children of my daughters can become king. And this is the origin of the entire disaster. Because Santanu said yes. If Santanu hadn't said yes, the entire Mahabharata drama would not have happened, because Bhishma would have been the king, and Bhishma would have been a very good king and have sufficient sons to guarantee the descendants and train his sons and maybe send them to be trained in Swarga like he was trained by his mother Ganga. But Santanu said yes, okay, yeah, and Bhishma said, okay, yeah, I promise, I renounce the succession to the throne, and even I will never have any children. Which is, a very brave thing to do, but a very stupid thing to do. Because Bhishma was not entitled to sacrifice the good of the kingdom for the lasting attachments of his father. So Bhishma, yeah, he knew about Krishna, but he played a very bad part. And in fact, in the Mahabharata, at some point, at the end of the battle, he recognizes that he made a lot of, wrong choices. So he's not complaining that he's been killed. And we have Karna. Karna is also in the same tragedy, because why should have Kunti abandon him in the first place? Because Kunti was not educated enough. She didn't know what she was doing. Durvasa didn't really give her all the explanation properly. So Durvasa gave a mantra to Kunti without explaining properly, and Kunti was playing with the mantra. So many people today are playing with mantras and the deities like they play with dolls. Luckily they don't have the same powers that Durvasa gave to Kunti, because otherwise we'll be, in much bigger problem. But the story of Karna, just like the story of Vyasa and Santanu and Bhishma and everybody else in the Mahabharata, is meant to teach us by example. If people make the wrong choices, if people make mistakes, then we have consequence. So this is how Karna was the greatest Kshatriya. Actually, he was the eldest of the Pandavas. And he was directly the son of Surya. In Puri, as I mentioned a few times, the 5 Pandavas are considered the manifestations of Shiva. In fact, the 5 main temples of Shiva in Puri are called the Pancha Pandavas. So, who is Karna? Karna is the black sun, the Surya in the aspect of Martanda, is Shiva as a destroyer. while Yudhishthira is Yama, is Dharmaraj, which is the aspect of Dharma personified by Shiva. Then Bhima is the aspect of Vayu. Bhima is Vayu, the aspect of Shiva that is the prana Vayu, the energy, the power, the life force in the universe. And Arjuna is Indra, is the principle of Shiva that is manifest in being the sovereign, the king of all the universe. And so we have the Ashwini Kumaras, who are the Nakul and Sahadevas. The Ashwini Kumaras are the personification of the healing properties, the healing powers of Shiva. And Karna is the Martanda, is the destroying aspect of Shiva that you can experience when the sun is scorching you. You see the desert, you go in the desert, it's very hot. The desert is drying everything, it's killing everything. It's the destroying aspect. So, yes, at the story level, the general story level, Leela, Karna is born of Kunti when she was still a very small child, and she didn't know what to do with the baby, so she put the baby out. And we have also all the other examples of, from Sargon in the Sumeric Akkadic tradition to Moses to, everybody else who was abandoned in a basket as a child. Probably it was a popular practice. Karna was picked up by the charioteer and his wife, so the wife of the charioteer was called Radha, and they took care of him with lots of affection, but they could only give him a Shudra training because they were Shudras. So Karna became a Shudra by training. And as a Shudra by training, he continued to behave because, he not only he was mistreated, but he also didn't have a very clear idea what it means to be a king. He was only thinking about the prestige, just like, Satyavati's father was thinking of the position as a king only regarding the prestige. Karna was, aspiring to the prestige of the kingly position. So, pity really. Question number 3. If guna and karma are the basis of varna, then should we go for the same guna and karma for marriages also instead of gotra? Okay, yes, we should go for the same varna, but definitely the wrong gotra. We should not, we should consider the gotra, because gotra has nothing to do with guna and karma, but it doesn't mean caste. Gotra is not caste. Gotra means seminal descendants. So if you go for marriage, considering, being attentive to the principle of gotra, you are not likely to marry someone who has your same DNA. So you're not going to have major genetic problems, because the endogamy, marrying people with the same DNA, is not a good idea. In fact, it's called inbreeding, and is the cause of so many disabilities, from hemophilia to dementia, and we can see that in the history of the royal families in Europe. They were a disaster because they were all in the same DNA. They were all related. So the problem is that people confuse the Varna with the DNA. So they think that when they choose, the same Varna, they're choosing the same DNA. Because Varna, okay, I am a Brahmana, my son is a Brahmana, so it's a DNA thing. It's a Brahmana DNA, it's a Hindu DNA. But that's absolutely the opposite. The DNA is the Gotra, which you should not have the same Gotra. But you should have the same qualities, the same guna and karma, the same interest. Because otherwise, if husband and wife don't have the same interests, the same qualifications, the same aspirations, the same mentality, they're going to fight all the time. Doesn't matter if they have the same caste. If they don't have the same Varna, you'll have disaster. And the only way to keep somehow the lid on the disaster is to keep the women totally dependent on the husband, the father, the husband, or the son. So the women are not qualified for anything. The women don't have any guna and karma according to the caste people. You can pick up any woman wherever from any family, but as long as it's a real, the proper caste or DNA descendants, because women don't need to be qualified. They don't even need to go to school. What's the need of even feeding them? I remember when the BJP came to power, the first time, there was an article in a newspaper. I kept it. I scanned it and kept it, and it was saying that, why reservation for women? Women don't need anything. They don't need food. They don't need education. After all, they just have to make, to make children. They just have to breed, produce children. What qualification do you need? That's not exactly the Vedic perspective. So definitely marriage should go by Varna, means guna and karma. So husband and wife can cooperate together happily, do the things they like to do together, and also create a good atmosphere for the children to grow up, with sufficient self-esteem and sufficient, confidence, so that they can become, good people on their own. Okay. Question number 4. Is there a need of balance between the 4 varnas? If needed, then how to bring it? If not, then can it be said that Prakriti maintains the balance? Don't understand what is the meaning of balance between the 4 varnas. The 4 varnas don't need to have the same number of people. It's not that, you need to have the same number of kshatriyas and brahmanas, same number of vaishyas, same number of shudras. The brahmanas can be, any number, but, less number is required, because not, only a small percentage will be, will have the actual potential to develop as a brahmana, potential or interest or anything. More brahmanas, better, why not? Kshatriyas, okay, ideally every city should have a kshatriya king of their own, but of course the number of kshatriyas in a kingdom is never the same number as the shudras of the kingdom. It's just not possible. So one kshatriya can take care of a certain number of vaishyas and shudras, which can be, especially shudras, can be probably up to 2,000 people, 3,000 people, 5,000 people. That's the average city that can function by itself. So the ratio of the kshatriya to shudra could be 1 to 5,000 easily. But that doesn't mean that they are the oppressors, and the Shudras are the oppressed. In fact, it's saying that the Kshatriya is the oppressor, like the Marxist historians say, is like saying that the school teacher is the oppressor of the students. Not necessarily. A school teacher is teaching the students. Of course, we have better school teachers and worse school teachers. The best school teacher will actually take care of the students in a very good way, protective way, and everything. So that no need for oppression or exploitation or mistreatment or anything. Okay, so I answered the questions that I got from Orissa. And Sudeep, any other question, observation, or anything? Otherwise, we close the discussion now.
No, I'm good for mine.
You have no objections?
You have no objections?
No.
Okay, good. So if you have any other questions, of course you can write to me. Now if you close the mic, it's okay. If you can write to me through the WhatsApp, if the public in general is going to see this video, because I think it's a decent video. We can put it in public. We can publish it.
Yeah.
Unlike some others
that
that I have done.
I have done.
But okay, so if anyone from the public wants to ask questions or to participate to a next meeting, they can contact me. Okay, so I close here. Thanks for your participation. Jai Jagannath, the next time.